Alright guys, so today I want to talk a little bit about PlayStation VR. And the reason for this is because not only did Sony recently reveal exactly how many units of PlayStation VR they sold through, but also because I realized that in yesterday's video, I think I came off pretty entitled, and I want to apologize for that. I'm not necessarily taking back what I had to say about PlayStation's State of Play live stream event. A lot of what I said was genuine and it was true, but I do think it was kind of unfair for me to be as harsh as I was without also acknowledging the fact that I think Sony maybe did have a reason, or at least a few good reasons, for showing as much VR as they did. And I do realize that in that video, I kind of played off VR, making it seem like nobody cares about it, when in fact that is just simply not true, and I was pretty ignorant for coming off that way. Many of you in the comments have let me know that you actually thought the showing was good because you own a PSVR headset, and so for anybody who does own a PlayStation VR headset, I can definitely see why the State of Play event and its heavy focus on VR is definitely exciting for you. Now, for me personally, I do not own a VR headset of any kind. I haven't really shown much interest in it, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm completely against it or anything like that. I think at this point, if I'm ever going to try out VR, it will definitely be through PlayStation, and it will more than likely be through the next generation version of their PSVR headset, which is definitely going to be a thing, probably announced alongside the PlayStation 5. Just makes sense for Sony to do that. So I do want to apologize for that. I understand that Sony, or at least, I guess I could say I failed to understand or realize, but now I do understand that Sony is currently the leader in the VR market. So I have to kind of keep that in mind and understand that there is a reason why Sony is putting such a heavy focus on VR. And even though it may not necessarily be for me and it may not necessarily excite me that much, I have to understand that for those who do care about it, events like yesterday's event are probably not too bad, right? And not nearly as disappointing. But at the same time, I do want to reiterate that I do hope that going forward that PlayStation, with these State of Play live stream events, I hope they have just a few more significant announcements and a little bit more variety in there. But really what I wanted to do is not only apologize for sounding so entitled, but I wanted to relay this information to you guys, for anybody who is interested in it, talking about exactly how many units of PlayStation VR Sony has sold. So it says here, Sony has confirmed that the PlayStation VR is doing relatively well in the still developing virtual reality space. The publisher revealed in a blog post today exactly how many PSVRs it has sold. We're also very excited to reveal that we've officially sold through more than 4.2 million PSVR systems worldwide as of March 3rd, 2019. PlayStation social media director Sid Schumann wrote in a blog post, "We'd like to thank our fans for the amazing support for helping us achieve the milestone." That sold through designation is important because it's not just shipped. Instead, 4.2 million people have actually purchased the device. This means that PSVR likely still has a lead in the premium VR headset market, but Facebook and HTC don't share exact sales numbers for their devices. Even without that data, however, industry intelligence from IDC estimates that PSVR shipped 463,000 headsets in the fourth quarter of 2018. That puts it ahead of the 300,000 Oculus Rifts and 230,000 HTC Vives. Sony has continued to use its advantages in the gaming space to pitch the PSVR to customers. Unlike Vive or Rift, you only need a PlayStation 4 instead of an expensive gaming PC. PlayStation is also a globally recognized gaming brand with numerous developer partnerships. The publisher has leveraged those relationships to bring big-name VR experiences to PSVR first. That includes hits like Tetris Effect and Resident Evil 7, and that's on top of the first-party efforts like Farpoint and Astrobot Rescue Mission. So, yeah, definitely some pretty significant numbers there for PlayStation VR. I think it's pretty clear at this point that Sony is going to continue to heavily invest in VR, and I think it makes sense for them to do so, even though it's not something that really excites me that much, I will say that's probably because I haven't tried it yet. I hope to one day be able to try it, and from what I've heard, it's one of these things where you really can't explain it. It's just something you have to try for yourself, and when you do, you're going to realize just how much of a unique and different experience it is from playing a console or PC traditionally. So one day I do hope to try it, and I will definitely be paying close attention to what Sony's going to do with the next iteration of PSVR, how expensive it's going to be, how it's going to be integrated with the PlayStation 5, and most importantly, what types of games they're going to be showing for it and what type of improvements we're going to see in those games. But 4.2 million sold is definitely a significant number, and I think it's pretty interesting that Sony is in the lead in the VR market. And I don't know. I mean, I can't sit here and make it seem like it's something that I'm going to be paying very close attention to in the long term, but I just hope that Sony can kind of figure out a way to make the headset a little bit more affordable. I mean, I know it's affordable now, but when it first launched. But on top of that, I would like to see it kind of be more user-friendly in terms of wireless technology, how cumbersome it's going to be. And I think the power of the PlayStation 5 will definitely be able to enhance the next version of PlayStation VR for sure. So yeah, overall, good news for Sony in the virtual reality space. I don't think they're going to be abandoning it anytime soon. They are definitely finding success here, and they're going to want to continue to pursue that, and I don't think anybody can blame them for that. So moving on from that, there's one last thing I do want to take a couple minutes here to talk about because I do find it pretty interesting, but not necessarily surprising. It says PlayStation ditches download codes at physical stores. It looks like PlayStation is ending the sale of game download codes in physical stores. Longtime Twitter leaker Wario64 has released a memo sent by PlayStation to GameStop stores worldwide, stating that Sony will, quote, no longer provide full game digital download codes to any retailers from April 1st. While games with a physical disc release will still be offered in store, digital-only games will now only be available for sale through the PlayStation Network store itself, accessed directly via your PlayStation console. So stores will still, however, be able to sell general top-up codes for adding credit to PlayStation Network accounts, which is pretty important. I think that last part we read there is pretty important because the biggest problem I would see people having with this is there's a lot of people who don't want to put their credit card information on the PlayStation Network or anything like that for whatever reason. It's very understandable. So the fact that you still can get currency to use on the PlayStation Network, I think is still very important. I think if that wasn't still available, people would, at least a certain group of people, would be very upset over that. So the memo specifies that the move only affects Sony game releases and has no effect on the policy of Microsoft or Nintendo, who have yet to make a similar announcement. So it says, long live the e-store. For as long as games have been sold digitally, physical stores like the UK's Game and the US's GameStop, Walmart, and the like have offered in-store purchases of digital titles, effectively selling players a one-use code they can then use to download. While the process of getting the game on your console in this way is a bit inefficient, some people still like to browse in a brick-and-mortar store and may be more likely to buy something they can physically hold, even if there isn't a real disc or cartridge inside it. That's before considering them as a surprise gifting option. While this move is likely not to prove too disruptive in the short term, the memo at least suggests removing the title should only take 1 hour to complete, but it's a further blow to physical stores, which are feeling more redundant and more of our collective purchasing habits as they move to online. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a huge deal here, but I do think it's worth mentioning that this is something apparently Sony's going to do, and even though I don't want a digital-only future, especially not a streaming-only future, I am well aware that most gamers seem to be purchasing their games digitally. Even I do from time to time. I'm not going to sit here and make it sound like I don't, but at the same time, I do very much care about physical discs and being able to go into a store and buy something and feel as though I own it. That's really the only major problem with the thought of a digital-only future is it definitely gives way too much control and way too much power to the publishers and the distributors, right? So always having the ability to buy games physically is going to be important. I think Sony for sure understands this importance, and I don't think this is going to be a huge deal. I don't think there's anybody out there really losing their mind over the idea that they can't go into a GameStop or a Best Buy and buy a physical digital download code of a game. Maybe there are, though. I don't know. I've personally never done it. So if you are somebody who is upset over this, let me know why. I will be interested to hear what you have to say. To finish off this video, once again, I think Sony fully understands the importance of physical discs and how much their customers still care about that. And even though statistics show that a lot of people, even maybe the majority of people, are buying their games digitally, there's still a significant enough of a market out there that still goes out there, buys the physical discs. And I hope Sony doesn't start pushing harder for a digital only future, because that's the last thing I want to see Sony push for, even though we do have to realistically understand that this is something that all publishers, all game publishers and companies would love to happen. But us as the consumer, as long as we show that we care and we go out there and speak with our wallets and we don't always buy our games digitally, I think it'll still be relevant for some time to come. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you found it interesting or useful, whatever. If you did, be sure to leave the video a like. It really helps it out. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. It helps tremendously. But until next time, guys, take care.